The Miami Dolphins decided to make significant changes, and it's clear they're not content with mediocrity anymore. Special teams coach Danny Crossman and wide receivers coach Wes Welker were fired, sending a strong message that things must improve. Head coach Mike McDaniel's statement was polite, thanking both for their contributions, but the underlying tone was unmistakable. Changes were overdue. For fans, this move feels like both a long-awaited correction and a surprising shakeup. Crossman's dismissal doesn't come as a shock. Dolphins fans have been frustrated with the special teams for years. Other than Jason Sanders, the unit has consistently failed to make a meaningful impact, and this past season was no different. It was a glaring weakness that couldn't be ignored any longer. On the other hand, Welker's departure raises more eyebrows. Just a year ago, the Dolphins boasted one of the league's best wide receiver duos in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, with both putting up incredible numbers in 2023. But 2024 brought a significant drop-off in production, and the entire group seemed to regress. Hill played through a broken wrist, Waddle didn't reach 1,000 receiving yards for the first time in his career, and injuries plagued the depth players. Even so, it's hard to pin all of that on Welker. So why the change? Perhaps McDaniel felt the need for fresh leadership in the receivers' room, or maybe Hill's visible frustration after the season-ending loss pushed the team in this direction. His social media posts and public comments made it clear he wasn't happy. While Hill didn't single out Welker, the timing makes it hard to dismiss as a coincidence. This move signals that McDaniel and general manager Chris Grier are willing to make bold decisions, but it also raises questions about the team's direction. The Dolphins were expected to contend for a championship, yet they ended with an 8-9 record, missing the playoffs. Injuries undoubtedly played a major role in the team's struggles. Tua Tagovailoa missed 6.5 games, and without him, the offense was a disaster. The backup quarterbacks, Mike White, Skylar Thompson, and others, were simply not good enough, and the Dolphins went 1-6 in games Tua didn't finish. The offense averaged just 12.9 points per game without him, a staggering drop-off that exposed the lack of depth and preparation at the most important position. Grier admitted the season was unacceptable, but his roster decisions contributed to the mess. The Dolphins' salary cap issues, reliance on injury-prone players, and lack of a competent backup quarterback were glaring problems. Grier acknowledged they were runners-up in pursuing better backups, but being close doesn't count when your season crumbles without your starter. Fixing the quarterback depth chart is a top priority this offseason, especially given Tua's history of injuries. Grier made it clear that Tua needs to take better care of himself and learn how to avoid unnecessary risks. The team can't afford to lose him again and expect to compete. Beyond the injuries and roster issues, discipline, or the lack thereof, was another major problem. Players being late to meetings and a generally lax atmosphere hurt the team. Those issues showed up on the field, where Miami was among the most penalized teams in the league. For an offense already struggling to score, those penalties were costly, often killing drives and momentum. If McDaniel wants to fix the culture, he'll need to take a harder stance on accountability. The days of being a player-friendly coach might need to end if the Dolphins are going to clean up their act. The offense, built around Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, failed to live up to expectations. Hill missed the Pro Bowl for the first time in his career, as did Waddle. Combined, the two had over 1,100 fewer yards than they did in 2023. That kind of drop-off is unacceptable for a team that relies so heavily on its star power. While Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith had breakout seasons and set team records, their individual success wasn't enough to carry an offense that struggled with turnovers and inconsistency. Miami finished with a -5 turnover differential, a stat that tells the story of a team unable to capitalize on opportunities. When they won the turnover battle, they went 5-1. When they didn't, they were 1-5. It's that simple. On the other side of the ball, Anthony Weaver's defense was a rare bright spot. Despite injuries to key players like Bradley Chubb and Jaylon Phillips, the defense exceeded expectations. Miami ranked 4th in total defense and 10th in points allowed, showing resilience and adaptability under Weaver's leadership. Zach Sealer stood out as one of the team's best players, filling in admirably for Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. But the Dolphins now face the possibility of losing Weaver, who is likely to draw interest as a head coaching candidate. His departure would mean yet another scheme change for a defense that's already dealt with too much instability. As the offseason begins, the Dolphins face critical decisions. The quarterback situation remains the most pressing issue, but it's far from the only one. The offensive line needs reinforcements, especially after injuries to players like Austin Jackson hurt the running game. Depth across the roster must be addressed, as the Dolphins once again struggled to overcome injuries to key players. The team's reliance on high-priced stars also raises concerns, especially when so few of them lived up to their contracts this season.